Hey, welcome on in. I'm Roger W. Downs, and I'm going to tell you 4 tips right now that's going to help you take your podcast to the next level and rise you above the rest. So why should you listen to me? Well, before I started DownsMedia.com, which is a multimedia company, and also Roger W. Downs Photography, where I take you outside and show you the great outdoors and God's imagery and my photography, I was in broadcasting for 25 years as a rather successful on-air personality. As a matter of fact, I held ratings as high as 19 shares, 25 shares. The last job I was at in our target demo, I went from a 3.2, where the last guy left it, to an 11.2. So I'm not bragging about me, but I'm going to share with you the knowledge that I have that can help you really take your podcast to the next level. Because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I hear a lot of beginner mistakes. So let's help you get past that right now. Tip number 1, prep your show. In other words, research. That can be anything from news articles off of a news site, or an article that someone wrote about a topic you want to talk about so you can educate yourself, or even a conversation you have with some of your friends, or an interview you conduct. But make sure that you research what you're going to talk about, or schedule someone who's an expert in the field so that you sound knowledgeable. And also know the flow of your show. In other words, you have it planned out. So you're going to talk about this topic, walk into this interview, and then follow it up with these talking points based off of the topic you started, the interview you had, and then you wrap up the show. You see what I mean? Make sure that you have a step-by-step plan. Now, sometimes you're going to maybe start off with this topic, get a little sidestepped over here, and then get back to the interview, and then get to the talking points, and that's okay because you can flesh out a topic that way. But have a plan of attack, and that's what show prep is all about. Now, the other thing about show prep, if you're going to use a source, such as, let's say, CNN.com, or maybe your favorite parenting website, or a magazine, or a conversation you had with, let's say, your child's teacher, you need to accredit your sources each and every time. Let me stress, each and every time. You don't, that's called plagiarism, and you can get sued for that. And it can happen. You don't want that. It gets really ugly. It's a hot mess. Don't go down that road. So always accredit your sources. Sort of like when you used to write term papers for college and they tell you to accredit your sources, do the exact same thing. Show prep. Vitally important. And how long should you take to show prep a show? Well, that varies. Let's say you have a 30-minute podcast. You're going to want to show prep probably for at least an hour. And that's at least an hour. I would suggest 90 minutes. My rule of thumb is always go 3 times longer than what your show is. So if you have a show that's an hour, 3 hours. If you have a show that's 20 minutes, you want to go at least an hour. See what I mean? Tip number 2. How do you know if a topic you're going to discuss is worth talking about? That's real easy. Back in the day when I was in radio, we just kind of threw darts at the wall. And sometimes you just kind of follow the news trends, find out what the news channels are talking about, or what was happening, or if it was a big star, you could talk about them pretty safely. But when it came to news talk, you were like, what do I talk about? Well, this is easy. Go to trends.google.com. That's trends.google.com and type in searches that you would use to find your topic on, let's say, Google. And that'll tell you if people are actually interested in it. I would suggest looking over about a 3-month span to find out if people are actually interested in what you're talking about. Unless, of course, you want to be really on point with a breaking news story or a breaking social issue. Then, of course, you're probably not going to have to use trends.google.com. But anything else, you're going to be able to see a regular flow of interest. And if it's not there, if it flatlines, or if it's just little spikes every now and then, don't talk about it. It's best just to steer clear of it, because you're going to lose audience, because people will listen to that episode and go, these guys are really boring, and they won't be back. Number 3, solid equipment. Let me stress, solid equipment. Now, listen to my voice right now because it's being picked up by this microphone, and now listen to it. Hey, how are you? It's very tinny. It's getting picked up off the camera. This sounds like crud. No one's going to want to listen to you, especially on a podcast where they don't have a visual interaction like you have right now. If they don't have a visual interaction and the audio is bad, you've lost them that quick. They're gone. Now, my suggestion is probably going with some devices or hardware from Rode, R-O-D-E. They make some great microphones, which are about $200 a piece. I know it seems a little pricey, but trust me, it is well worth the investment if you're planning on continuing with your podcast. And also the Rodecaster Pro mixing board. Now, I love that board because it has hot buttons on the right. You can put interviews there, music beds as you intro and outro your show, sound bites, whatever you want to use. Plus, you can tap your phone into it, be it an Apple phone or an Android, and conduct interviews right over the phone, just like the professionals do. And you can record onto SD cards, which is awesome because then you don't have to plug it into a computer. So that means you can take that setup anywhere you go, set up the mics, plug the board in, and off to the races you go. That can come in really handy if you're covering, let's say, sporting events or possibly covering a multitude of other things that I can't come up with right now in my head. Sporting events seems like that would be the main thing. But you can take it out into the field and talk with people and not worry about having to take along a computer. It is a beautiful thing. And it also connects up to 4 different mics. So now that I've said that enough about Rode, there is a link underneath this video that you can click on. It'll take you right to where you can research it for yourself or purchase it. It's completely up to you. Now, of course, there's other equipment out there that you can use, but I would suggest Rode because it is a solid piece of equipment. It's not state-of-the-art recording studio like you'd find in LA or Nashville, but it does great when you're recording a podcast and want to have several people on at the same time. Tip number 4. Any topic you're going to discuss needs to have 8 talking points. 8, like a spider. And now in radio, we used to say that, does your topic have 8 legs, like a spider does? In other words, if you're going to talk about a 2-year-old because you're in a parenting podcast and you're talking about 2-year-olds and their fits, you need to talk about what causes those fits. Does rewarding them work out? Does spanking work out? How do you handle it when they're throwing a fit in the store? You see what I mean? There's all these different talking points about a 2-year-old throwing a temper tantrum, because I've had kids and I remember how it was. I was like, oh, I swear to God, this is the last time I'm taking my brother's kids anywhere. That's what I'd say in the store anyway. So have 8 talking points, because then you're going to have ways to break off. So if one of those talking points starts to get a little lame, or if you kind of run to the end of it, then you can move on to the next and segue to the next. And that way you have a solid conversation, because without talking points to each topic, again, you're going to start to float off into digression and people are going to get bored with your podcast. You're going to be talking about things that absolutely make no sense to them and they're out and you've lost them forever. So I hope that helps out. By the way, if you really like this video, do me a favor, like it, ring the bell, of course, subscribe to this channel. I'll be more than happy to share some other tips and tricks for being a really decent podcast personality, and or share it. I'd love for you to do that as well. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later.